As a 17-year-old college student, I've always felt a bit disconnected from my family, largely due to our differing personalities and expectations. Despite my efforts to excel academically and even earning a scholarship, my family's approval has remained elusive, especially in contrast to my younger sister, who has always been the favored one. Over the years, I managed to save $90,000 for my college education through part-time 2 jobs and scholarships. This money represented not just my hard work, but my future independence. However, my parents viewed it differently. Recently, they informed me that my sister, who is 22 and currently unemployed, needed a new apartment in a high-end area. Despite her lack of financial contribution, they expected me to give up my entire savings to help her. The demand was made bluntly and without room for negotiation. My refusal, they warned, would result in me being disowned. My parents tried to justify their request by saying that supporting family comes first, and that I should be willing to help my sister unconditionally. The emotional pressure was intense, and I initially found myself speechless and overwhelmed by the unfairness of their demand. As I considered my limited options, I realized how wrong it was to sacrifice my future for someone who had not shown the same dedication or responsibility. The thought of giving in crossed my mind, simply to maintain peace. But the more I pondered, the clearer it became that I could not let my hard-earned independence be taken so easily. Determined to stand my ground, I began to safeguard my legal rights and personal documents. I quietly moved my valuables to a friend's house, preparing for the possibility of having to leave my family home. It was a daunting prospect, but I knew I had to be ready for any outcome, including the worst-case scenario of estrangement from my family. This decision wasn't easy, but it was necessary to protect my future and uphold my values. So, I decided to reach out to my college's housing office to explore any emergency housing options they might offer. Although they didn't have immediate accommodations, they did provide information on local resources that could assist in times of need. It wasn't much, but it gave me a starting point. Armed with this information, I confronted my parents with a clear stance. I would not surrender my savings. Their response was explosive. My father accused me of selfishness and ingratitude, while my mother tearfully claimed I was tearing our family apart over what she trivialized as a little money. If it was indeed trivial, I wondered why they couldn't cover the expense themselves. During this confrontation, my sister Ellie had an outburst, accusing me of ruining her life and disregarding her happiness. The atmosphere at home grew increasingly toxic. My parents' communication was either filled with guilt-laden remarks or cold silence. My mother stopped talking to me altogether, while my father made cutting remarks whenever I appeared. Ellie acted as though I had personally betrayed her. Despite their continuous threats and emotional manipulation, I stayed firm and began to secretly move my valuables to a friend's house, preparing for an imminent departure. I also reached out to other friends to keep them informed, and they offered their support, suggesting I consider legal action if necessary. The situation escalated when I discovered my parents had attempted to access my bank account, planning to withdraw my savings without my consent. Anticipating such a move, I had already secured my funds by emptying and closing the account. Confronted with their failed attempt, their anger erupted. My father branded me ungrateful and destructive to our family. My mother's response was to lament and question how I could do this to them. I stood my ground, informing them that they had crossed a line and that I was done being victimized. If they wanted me out, I would leave, but not a penny of my money would go with me. To ensure that my side of the story was heard, I took to social media. I posted a detailed account of the events, including their demand for my savings, their threats, and their emotional tactics. I shared screenshots of their texts and the bank alert showing their attempt to access my account. I tagged not just my immediate family, but also their friends and extended family members to expose the truth widely. The response was immediate and largely supportive. Most people sided with me, criticizing my parents and sister for their actions. Shocked and disappointed, some extended family members who were previously unaware of the depth of the issue reached out. Although a few of my parents' close friends attempted to defend them, they were mostly overshadowed by the overwhelming criticism. News of the situation spread quickly, affecting my parents' social and professional lives. Colleagues began to view my father differently, leading to strained work relationships, and my mother found herself increasingly ostracized from her social circles. As for Ellie, her plans for the new apartment crumbled when the landlord learned of the controversy, leaving her furious and blaming me. But by then, I was resolute, no longer concerned with their reproaches as they faced the consequences of their own actions. The facade of a perfect family was irreparably broken, illustrating the profound impacts of their choices. After the intense confrontation, I moved in with a supportive friend. Although it wasn't the perfect setup, it was a significant improvement from the toxic atmosphere at home. Living independently was challenging but incredibly liberating. I could concentrate on my studies and plan my future without the constant fear of my family attempting to exploit me further. The aftermath of my decision did not sit well with my parents. My phone was bombarded with a mix of threatening and pleading messages, urging me to delete the public post and return home. They even attempted to reshape the story, claiming they were only trying to help Ellie out of a tough spot. However, the truth was already out, and my decision to cut contact was firm. I blocked them on all communication platforms and even consulted a lawyer about securing a restraining order if necessary. This step was hard, but crucial for my peace of mind. During this period, some distant relatives came forward, offering support and expressing regret for not intervening earlier. My college, upon learning of my circumstances, extended additional financial aid, which came as a massive relief. This challenging journey brought significant personal growth. I became more confident and self-reliant, and my academic performance improved significantly now that the constant family-induced stress was gone. I also forged new friendships and established a dependable support network. Looking forward, my goal is to achieve complete financial independence, and I'm seriously considering permanently severing ties with my family. The cycle of toxicity needed to end, and I was committed to breaking it. Building a future where I didn't have to constantly anticipate the next familial betrayal was essential. It's been 2 months since I first shared my story publicly. I appreciate all the support and advice I received, which helped me navigate these turbulent times. After moving out and going public, my life became a whirlwind. My parents and Ellie reacted poorly, oscillating between anger and attempts at emotional manipulation. I adhered strictly to my no-contact policy, although it was challenging. About a week after I moved out, my mother unexpectedly showed up at my friend's place. Somehow, she had found out where I was staying. She was cheerful, pleading for me to return home and insisting they wanted to make amends. However, her words soon turned to guilt trips about the damage I was causing to the family and how Ellie was suffering because of my actions. It was then I realized that nothing had fundamentally changed. I firmly told her to leave, threatening to call the police if she didn't. She left, but not without claiming that I was breaking her heart. The situation escalated further when my father tried contacting my college for information about my classes and whereabouts. Fortunately, I had already informed the administration of my situation, so they disclosed nothing. This attempt to track me unnerved me significantly. Ellie also began appearing at places she knew I would be, like the library and the coffee shop near campus, oscillating between angry outbursts and desperate pleas for the money. This confirmed that maintaining distance was the right decision. Moving forward, my focus is on building a life where I am no longer overshadowed by familial obligations or expectations. A life truly my own. After leaving home due to the escalating situation with my family, I had to alter my daily routines for safety, and even asked friends to accompany me to and from classes. About a month later, my aunt, my mom's sister, reached out wanting to meet. I was worried but agreed because she had always been kind to me. We planned to meet in a public spot, but to my dismay, I discovered she was acting on my parents' behalf. They were waiting nearby, hoping to confront me. Feeling deeply betrayed, I left immediately and decided to block my aunt's number as well. The narrative war continued on social media, where my parents tried to sway public opinion by labeling me a troubled child who had stolen from them and fled. Although a few believed their story, most recognized the truth. It was painful to see family, friends, and distant relatives taking sides, but I was thankful for those who supported me. Amidst this, Ellie escalated things by starting a GoFundMe campaign, claiming she was the victim of financial abuse, needing to escape a toxic family environment. Disturbingly, she twisted the narrative to portray me as the abuser. I had to engage a lawyer to have the campaign removed. My parents even threatened legal action against me. absurdly claiming I owed them for my upbringing and that they had rights to my savings. This was enough to alarm me, prompting me to seek legal counsel. My lawyer reassured me they had no valid case, but advised me to continue documenting everything as a precaution. 5.5 months after my departure, I received an unexpected email from William Ellie's ex-boyfriend. He apologized for not reaching out sooner and expressed his support. William shared insights into Ellie's behavior during their relationship, revealing she had cheated on him frequently with men who would lavish her with expensive gifts and trips. He also informed me that Ellie had been fired from her last job for stealing, a fact my parents had concealed by compensating her employer to avoid charges. Learning this, I was infuriated by the double standards my parents upheld, protecting Ellie while expecting me to forfeit my hard-earned savings. 3 months post-leaving, a call came from an unknown number. It was my grandfather, my dad's father. We weren't close, he lived in another state, and our interactions were infrequent. He had heard about the family issues from a cousin and wanted to hear my side. Initially cautious, I found his concern genuine. He shared his own strained history with my father and apologized for his absence in my life, even offering financial support if needed. I appreciated his gesture, but expressed my desire to be self-reliant. He respected my decision, but left the offer open. This conversation with my grandfather piqued my curiosity about other estranged family members. I reached out to a couple of cousins on my mom's side. One of them, Megan, shared her own difficult experiences with my parents and Ellie. She revealed a particularly upsetting incident from a few years back. During a tough divorce, she needed temporary housing. My parents initially agreed to help, but Ellie's complaints quickly changed their stance, leaving Megan in a difficult position. This revelation added another layer to my frustration, confirming the long-standing pattern of self-centered behavior by Ellie, supported by my parents. It was a lot to process, but understanding the full extent of their actions solidified my resolve to maintain distance and build a new life on my own terms. Ellie didn't want Megan in her space, and as a result, my parents evicted Megan after just 5 days, forcing her to rely on friends' couches until she found a place of her own. It was disheartening to see how they treated other family members while expecting me to sacrifice everything for Ellie. Meanwhile, I was grappling with my own housing issues. I stayed temporarily with my friend's parents, who were incredibly hospitable, but I knew this couldn't be a long-term arrangement. I began searching for an affordable apartment near my campus, but the prices were beyond what I could afford. A few days into my apartment hunt, I encountered one of Ellie's friends at a grocery store. She attempted to guilt-trip me, claiming Ellie was depressed and it was all my fault. When I questioned her if she knew the full story, she admitted she only knew Ellie's version. I shared my perspective, and I could see doubt begin to cloud her expression. She left looking puzzled, and although it was a small victory, it felt satisfying to convey my side of the story. The next day brought more challenges. I received a call from my bank alerting me that someone had tried to access my new account using my social security number. The bank flagged the attempt as suspicious and blocked it. I was almost certain it was my parents' doing. Shaken by their audacity, I filed a police report and initiated a credit freeze to safeguard my finances. Realizing the severity of their actions, I decided to take legal measures. I revisited the lawyer I had previously consulted and began the process of obtaining a restraining order against my parents and Ellie. It was a drastic measure, but I felt I had no other option. The day before the restraining order hearing, my mother called me in a panic, crying and pleading for me to reconsider, claiming it would destroy the family. I reminded her of their actions and ended the call. The hearing was intense. My parents and Ellie arrived with their lawyer, trying to depict me as an ungrateful, troubled child against a loving family. However, I was prepared with texts, emails, social media posts, and bank records as evidence. The judge saw through their facade and granted the restraining order. As I left the courthouse, Ellie approached me, looking disheveled and worn out. She began to apologize, but her expression quickly turned bitter, and she spitefully remarked that I had ruined everyone's lives. A friend intervened and led her away. It was the last time I saw her. Amid these events, I also started looking for a part-time job to support myself. Balancing work and school was challenging, but being financially independent felt empowering. I won't pretend it hasn't been tough. There are days I miss having a family, even a dysfunctional one, particularly during holidays. It's been about a year since these events unfolded, and I'm still processing everything that's happened. But I'm moving forward, buoyed by the support from friends and others who've reached out during this journey. Recently, my uncle, my dad's brother, whom I've never been close with, called me unexpectedly. He sounded genuinely concerned, informing me that things had worsened for my parents and Ellie. Apparently, Ellie had gotten entangled with some questionable characters and now found herself in a precarious situation involving debts. In a situation that's almost too surreal to believe, my parents, in what can only be described as a misguided attempt at salvation, took out a second mortgage on their house to pay off Ellie's accumulating debts. However, their efforts fell short. One distressing night, the people to whom Ellie owed money showed up at my parents' house, leading to a chaotic scene that ended with the police getting involved and my dad being hospitalized with a broken arm. Despite the chaos and consequences, my parents, true to form, continued to shield Ellie. They told the police that the incident was just a random break-in, although the truth quickly spread within the family. Shortly after this incident, my uncle reached out to inform me of these developments. Around the same time, I began receiving messages from my parents again. Against my better judgment, I unblocked them, thinking they might have changed. They pleaded for me to return home and help them. They even had the audacity to suggest that if I had just given them the money initially, none of this would have happened. Disheartened by their continued manipulation, I chose to ignore their pleas. Amidst this turmoil, I managed to save enough money to move out of my friend's house into a more secure apartment further from campus, but with the peace of mind I desperately needed. Unfortunately, the peace was short-lived. Ellie, disregarding the restraining order, showed up at my new apartment. She was distraught, crying and begging for money, claiming she was in danger. When I told her to leave, she accused me of being responsible for her potential harm. It was a harrowing encounter, and I contacted my lawyer immediately afterward to discuss extending the restraining order to include my new address. I also informed my landlord and neighbors about the potential risk posed by my family. Adding insult to injury, I discovered through other family members that my parents were spreading rumors that I had introduced Ellie to the shady individuals and that I owed them money. This baseless accusation caused some relatives to turn against me, leading to a slew of hateful messages on social media, which forced me to block several people. Despite these challenges, the past year has also brought positive changes. I've made some incredible friends who have become like a chosen family to me. We're even planning a celebration together, a testament to the support and solidarity I found in them. Recently, I've heard rumors that my parents are facing foreclosure on their house. While part of me feels sympathy for their plight, I can't help but recognize that their own actions have led them to this point. It's a stark reminder of how different things could have been if they had simply respected my boundaries and treated me fairly. As I continue to navigate this journey, the support I've received has been invaluable. I'm grateful for every bit of encouragement and solidarity, which has truly sustained me through these tumultuous times. Thank you all for standing by me. I couldn't have done it without your support.